Hello and welcome to The Life You're Made For. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Pinney. Often our world feels reactive, confusing, and chaotic. On this show, we're going to slow down together. Take a breath, listen, and learn. We'll be joined in conversations with influential thinkers who will help us make new connections, understand our unique potential, check the beliefs we hold, and learn how to overcome unexpected challenges. I know that each and every one of us holds our own inner clarity, confidence, and courage, what I call 3C living and leading. So let's go after it together. I'm cheering you on. To dive deeper into the tools we discussed today, join the Grace Space Collective by subscribing to my emails. Go ahead and head on over to heatherpinney.com right now to get a free preview of my book, Grace Space, delivered to your inbox. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here with a special friend and guest that I've known for several years. This is Nick Breitbart. Nick, go ahead and say hi to everybody.
Hey, how you guys doing? So excited to be here.
Yes. So before we jump in, I'm going to tell them a little bit about you. So you have to endure your bio a little bit, Nick. But I promised everybody who I bring on here are people I personally vetted and gotten to know and actually gotten to watch in leadership. So you don't know how much I've been watching you from afar. So I was like, I want Nick on my show.
Well, I will say, Heather, it's a huge honor. I was sharing with you before, but some of the people who have been on the show are some of my heroes. And so to be a part of this and be able to engage in conversation, something I'm really looking forward to.
Oh, thanks, Nick. Well, Nick serves as the executive director of Creating Better Days. It's an LLC that oversees 2 Chick-fil-A restaurants in the Sacramento area. He has been in this role for over 10 years and brings a strong background in higher ed, having held diverse positions at a regional university, including Director of Residence Life and Dean of Students. Boy, you have been all over. As a first-generation American, I love that. That's very intriguing. We have to ask more about that. Nick offers a unique perspective in his leadership and carries a deep passion for helping others grow and develop. His commitment to supporting individuals, which I've gotten to see firsthand, has led him to focus his master's research on employee retention and engagement. I like that those two are married together with the quick service industry. Nick and his amazing wife, Sherry, I added that part because I got to know her and I love her. They've been married for 16 years and are blessed with 4 children and a brand new puppy. I've seen pictures. He's adorable. And when Nick's not coaching on the soccer field, you can usually find him exploring the Sierra Nevadas. So welcome, Nick.
Well, thanks. Let's talk about that puppy for a second. You know, our kids range from 14 down to 5. And so we kind of jokingly said, like, we haven't got a solid night's sleep in 14 years. And so right when our 5-year-old's starting to do pretty good, we're like, hey, let's start that over. So if I'm a little slow today, we've got a puppy who is 8 weeks old, who's such a joy. We did a little Christmas early celebration and gave the kids a surprise that will hopefully bring memories and experience for the next 15, 16 years.
Oh, I just love it. And I've got to hold that puppy while it's still a puppy. So if I just come knocking on your door, you'll know why. Just let me hold that puppy.
Please come over. And I tell everybody they're more than welcome to have her until she's done potty training. So if you want to take her for another month or 2, that's perfect.
Well, I'm with you. Darren and I are like, never puppy again. But I wouldn't mind taking her a night or 2 because I just absolutely love puppies. So anyways, congratulations on that. And
thank you. Yeah.
I got to see the video where they got to unwrap the puppy, so to speak, in the box, and the kids were just so cute on it. So happy for you guys.
Yep. So that's Princess Peppermint the Third. We're calling her Pepper.
I did see a little bit of like, can I name her? Can I name her? I'm like, ooh, have
absolutely.
fun, Nick. Yep. Well, I asked Nick to come on my show today because one of my core beliefs about leadership is it always starts from within. Sometimes we can get so externally focused about who a leader should be or what a leader should look like. And there's tons of leadership books actually that address this. Everything that I write and the way I coach is really about it starts from within. And it's only from within that great leadership flows out of. And so when I work and coach with clients, I want to say, let's start with your own clarity, your own confidence, and your own courage. Let's create your own grace space around you. Because once you do that, the rest will come naturally. You'll learn how to do this and lead people in it. And more importantly, you'll call them out to it. So let's jump in there, Nick. What's it mean to you when we talk about leadership starts from within?
Well, I mean, it means several things. First off, it's foundational. I think it was Covey, when he first published Seven Habits, had said there had been just this gap of literature for so many years of really starting from within. And so there was all these, become a great leader quick, or, your best boss now in 5 minutes, which I think neglected a lot of the internal work that us as leaders have to do. And I think the leaders we appreciate, you and I, Heather, are those who model that. But it's hard work. And so it's foundational. You had Ken Blanchard on the podcast. He wrote a book with Mark Miller, who worked with Chick-fil-A. And so, I've got to work with Mark over the years. They wrote a book called The Secret. And The Secret was this idea of character plus skills, because skills are really important for us as leaders. So it's not just leadership starts from within. It also has to get without and to get external. But the idea, and he uses the picture of an iceberg. And so the skills are the top of the water, right? But 85% of a leader is underwater. And so we've been teaching that at Chick-fil-A for the 10 years that I've been there. So I've gone through that maybe 200 times. And every single time I think about that internal life and the external life, I'm convicted because there's gaps. And so as I share today, it's not that I'm the finished work in progress, but it's that continual movement of, hey, how do I create a consistency from inside to outside? So yeah, I think it's super foundational.
Well said. Yeah. My running joke is I write my books for me. It's stuff I'm working on, not that I've arrived at, but it's where I want to stay intentional to say, this is what I want. I want to increase my own clarity, confidence, and courage internally to call people out into that. But I also want to practice gray space. And so that's why I call them practices in my latest book of how do we practice that leadership presence that we want to show up with. And so let's jump in there. What kind of leadership presence do you value? Or unless you have something else to add to that.
No, I was thinking about the leaders that I've looked up to growing up, and I can't tell you the specific skills that they possess, but there was something about them, right? And I think that's that internal quality of leadership.
Yeah.
There are definitely practices, tools, and all that, but if we're not focusing on character, and when we talk about character, it's not just, hey, be honest and don't lie, but a character that, I think maybe it's Henry Cloud. He wrote a book, Integrity, and it's really structural integrity, right? So if we're going to drive across a bridge, we hope that there is structural integrity. And so when we think about integrity and we think about character, it's, hey, is there alignment? Does it match up internal and external? And so I think about the people who have gone before me that I just admire, I look up to, I still connect to. It's nothing fancy. It's just that consistency over time.
Well said. Is there alignment? That is such a powerful question. In the work that I do, it's the good questions that gets us the good answers. So as you look at your life, where is there alignment and where is there a pull of misalignment?
Oh, that's a great question. And I should ask the team I get to serve, and I should ask my spouse, because, I'd say I think this is sometime when I was living in the Bay Area, going to the importance. I think there's some self-awareness that, I can tell when I'm out of alignment, I can tell. But I remember this situation I was driving on, it was the 580, 680 interchange. So it's Bay Area, crowded traffic. And me and a friend were driving behind this guy towing a trailer, and the trailer had lost a wheel. And it was driving on its axle, and it was shooting this rooster tail of flames on the freeway. Cars are swerving. And so me and my friend Josh drive up next to the driver, and I gave him the old fashioned roll down the window with the hand crank, which I'm sure he had a button. But I said, hey, you got to pull over. You got a tire out. And I still remember his face. He looked at me and he gave me a thumbs up, and he said, yeah, I know. And he just kept driving along. And I just remember, first of all, we lost it. Like, this guy's going to kill somebody on the freeway. But afterwards, I reflected about the importance of doing something with our self-awareness. It's one thing to be aware of, like, hey, these are my issues, or this is where I'm out of alignment. I think next is, hey, what am I going to do with it? And then the other thing is, hey, am I accurate with my own self-awareness? I think things that have helped me to not, I think the drift is going to happen when it comes down to leadership from within. There's going to be days where you're off. There's going to be situations where you make the wrong call. Is having both internal and external feedback loops, I think, has been pretty critical for me. So getting times to be quiet. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about Gray Space, is just the challenge to pause, to slow down, to reflect, but then also to invite people to be a part of that journey. Because there's times where I may have a clear conscience and feel like, and I think things are pretty dialed. But me and my wife, we do a weekly check-in of, hey, how are we doing out of 10? That's an easy question for me to ask when I know I was right after a birthday and I got her something and it's a great week. But there's those weeks where I haven't checked in frequent enough, or I know something's up. If I'm doing that on a weekly cadence versus just when I feel like it, reality is our friend. And sometimes it's fun and we get we're at an 8 or a 9. Other times we're at a 6 or a 7. And so are we self-aware, and are we inviting people into that feedback loop?
Gosh, I love that. It makes me think of, I dedicated Grace Space to my son, Luke. And I said something like to Luke, who I'd never raised a teenage son before. And he was the beginning of Grace Space, creating it together. And I just recently brought him on my show. But one of the feedback loops that we had to have was, is this helping? Or do I think I'm just helping you? Because I could feel that, if we look at the first practice, reacting versus responding, I would go to, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, help him. And it wasn't so much a help. It was a little bit more of a block or a hindrance or even an insult. And learning how to say, listen, I gotta understand this, because I do want to help you. My intent is to help. And as you grow and mature into a young man, I want that ease between us that says, hey, this really helped me, Mom, and this not so much. My only criteria was you got to be respectful. But other than that, he deserves to have that feedback loop. And as his mom, and really kind of as the leader in the relationship, so to speak, in the home, really to initiate that feedback loop was really important to model that. And I got some candid feedback, which really helped raise my self-awareness. And I love that you brought up self-awareness.
Well, and I think candid feedback, but also with grace. Like that's the idea of you approached it with grace, you received it with grace. Because even in our self-awareness, we're going to have blind spots and we're going to miss it. And we're going to think, oh, I handled that conversation so well, when then later you get the feedback. And so having grace on ourselves as well, of saying, okay, I didn't handle that one like I wanted to, but I'm going to grow and get better. I think for us, the helpful thing, whether that's at Chick-fil-A or personally, is just keeping it frequent. I think there's been seasons in my life where I seek it more when I think things are off, which is super helpful. But if I can create a habit where it is a regular occurrence, I won't get that far off. We had, I think many moons ago, I think it was 20 years ago, I was studying marriage and family therapy. And I was interviewing some friends' parents, and they had been married. They were like the epitome of a healthy couple in my mind. And they'd been married 25 years. He was the fire chief. He was successful. They just had this picture as a college student that I looked up to. And I was like, I want their marriage. Right. And he told me that story that his wife drug him to a marriage conference 10 years into marriage. And they had to they were broken off into small groups. They had to do a check-in. And he went first, and I think he was a 9 out of 10. Everything's great. We're going on vacations. We've got 2 little kids, and everything's perfect. We've got the American dream. And then she went next, and she was a 2. And they did this publicly. And so he said, first off, he was so shocked at where she was at. Right. Secondly, he was so surprised at how far off he was from her without any awareness. Yeah. And so the main takeaway, I remember him looking me in the eye. He said, don't wait 10 years to check in on your relationships where you're at. Yeah. Make that just a part of your guys' friendship, your relationship, work relationship, to prevent that type of drift. Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. It makes me think, Darren, so good at asking me, what's my impact on you, Heather? And I'm like, thank you for asking. I was waiting for that question. Yeah.
I love that. Like, hey, what's it like being on the other side of me?
And what's it like living with me is a question I ask. We want to know that, because we don't want to just have an okay marriage. We want to have a deep love that grows.
Absolutely.
And we continue to not just endure the marriage, but really thrive in the marriage and enjoy one another as we get to know each other. And we're all evolving too. Yeah. What might have been important a couple of years ago is different today.
Yep. I love adding to that, especially at work. Okay, what's it like to be on the other side of me, or and then to add, all right, give me the last 20%. What have you been holding back?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the frequency, I've been meeting with some leaders for years, and each week, hey, how are we doing? How can I support you
Mm-hmm.
more? And sometimes you just get a shallower answer. No, things are
Yeah.
good overall. And then after a couple of weeks, finally, you might get that nugget of like, hey, when you do this, maybe some of the feedback that you got from Luke, when you do
Yeah.
this, is not that helpful.
Yeah.
And that's such a gift. But it takes consistency. It takes, all right, creating a safe
Yeah.
space or gray space of, hey,
Yeah.
please give me that 20% you're not holding on. You don't want to hurt my feelings, but I need to hear it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's so gutsy, Nick. That's hard. I'm already cringing. And I think about all the people I work with, and I too have to ask them. But there's days where I'm like, I'm not up for the feedback. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to respond well to it. So it's like, what's that check that you kind of have in your gut when you know you're ready for feedback and when you're not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I can't remember. Maybe it was Mark Miller who said what's worse than hearing about your blind spots is not knowing they exist.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's tough. It's like, I don't want to
Yeah.
hear it. Or, I mean, I'll be the first to say in our previous house, we had in our garage. So there wasn't a safety risk, but I saw some mold on the wall.
Yeah.
And when I saw mold on the wall, I said, okay, cool. I see the mold on the exterior, but what's going on behind that wall? And
Mm-hmm.
it took me months because I did not want to cut that wall open, because I knew the minute I cut that wall open, I was going to be exposed to all the reality of what's going on and the moisture and all that.
Let's
So
just paint over it.
I just kept wiping it off. Absolutely. I was like, it's not that big a deal. Wiped it off. And then eventually what happens, like you have more work
Yeah.
to do in the long run.
Yeah. What a
So
great
just the
metaphor.
importance, it's so important to take care
Mm-hmm.
of the interior life,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to, be aware. And the only
Yeah.
way to do that is self-awareness, taking the time, getting feedback.
Yeah. And let's look at the other side of that. My work has grown, and one of the things I had to learn to do is learn how to filter some of the feedback. And I do love getting feedback, and I want to be better and growing. But I remember one time I was getting feedback and I go, I don't want to be who you are. So I don't think I value your feedback. I guess that's where I want to ask too. And I think as my audience and the people that I work, it's grown. And even we see this in social media too. We're getting feedback unsolicited, and I'm having to work with helping people create filters around healthy feedback and what will really grow your self-awareness, and really how to also see some feedback as outliers, and it's not something you get to be selective, I guess is what I'm trying to say about your feedback. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
That is such a hard challenge. And I'll say particularly with social media, I've heard you talk about it in the past, Heather,
Mm-hmm.
with the influx of information. And I think you were
Mm-hmm.
coaching somebody on, you don't have to text back every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's just so much data overload.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with social media, people can say things more anonymously and all that, So put that to the side. I think where I've tried to coach people on receiving feedback, I think we pendulum swung at times to minimizing feedback. So,
Mm-hmm.
hey, consider the source. Now they're just trying to get you.
Mm-hmm.
And we lose out on some good feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual leadership, Oswald Sanders, there's a line in there that says, the wise person can learn from all feedback, even critical or malicious feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Now, juxtapose that to where you're getting 60,000 data inputs a day. Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
probably a little bit overwhelming. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that goes back to probably the community you have.
Mm-hmm.
When you get feedback, if you're processing all of it, that can be a pretty overwhelming experience. But if
Mm-hmm.
you get some that you're not sure if it's a blind spot or not,
Mm-hmm.
well, take it to the people who care about you. Take it to
Mm.
your circle. Take it to
Yeah.
your spouse. Take it to the people you work with and say, hey, this is some feedback I got. Can you
Yeah.
help me to understand and evaluate it?
Oh, I love it. Okay. I'm going to tell myself here. I'm thinking last week I got some feedback. Nick, I did not like this feedback. And I remember going, I'm feeling uncomfortable with this feedback. I'm not even sure. And so again, uncomfortable. Do I need to set a boundary? Uncomfortable. Do I need to listen and grow? Right. So I'm kind of navigating those emotions in that moment. And I remember taking it to Dare and say, this is some feedback I got, and I'm thinking it's triggering my ego. What do you think? Because that's the self-awareness, right? Like if your ego is getting triggered and you're living out of your ego, you're not going to show up the way you want not just as a leader, but as a human being. And, Darren, true to his form, he's like, yeah, it's totally ego head. And I'm like, all right, thank you.
Well, that's an honest person helping. And it's like,
Yeah.
being clear is kind. And so sometimes
Yes.
we try to minimize it, and we try,
Yeah.
well, you know what, actually, maybe not. But it's like,
Yeah.
nope, that's an opportunity. Think about that one. That's a
Right.
gift, right?
Right.
And for you to, I mean, that's brave for you to go to somebody who you know is going to tell you the truth
Yeah.
about something on ego. We try to protect ego. And so,
Yeah.
no, that's a great example of that.
Well, and I gave him a lifeline too, because, you know, no husband wants to walk into a trap or feel like, that's your ego, wife. So I thought, I'm going to give him a lifeline and say, I think this might be ego. What do you think? You know, like talking about self-awareness, like
you helped lower the threshold where you created that grace to be able to give that feedback.
Right. And in 10 seconds or less, you know, I think we were in between clients and he goes, yeah, that is ego. But it's a safe place to talk about grace space with where we're trying to create as not just husband and wife, but just as two leaders running our company, holding ourselves accountable to not running our companies and our clientele out of ego. Like, and going back to Ken Blanchard, who, you know, really created the term servant leadership. How do we serve everyone in front of us in our personal lives and in our professional life? There's this humility that I want to live with, no matter how long I'm in leadership. I want to grow my humility, not my arrogance.
That's so good. Well, and I think, you know, with servant leadership, which, you know, I got to study it in depth when we were talking about employee engagement and how do we help people in the quick service industry, which generally don't experience, unfortunately, a lot of servant leadership. How do we help increase their experience? And I think sometimes we just settle with kindness, and kindness is great, but kindness by itself is not leadership. You know, we have to give hard feedback. We have to. I was thinking of this the other day. There's this great leader when I worked at Jessup, and we were both walking each other out to the other's car. And pretty soon I realized there's no car in sight on campus. We were like on the far north of the campus. And so I'm like, Jared, where is your car? And he said, no, I'm walking you out to your car. And I said, no, I'm on the other side of the campus. I'm walking you out to your car. And he's like, no. So we were both kind, trying to help each other, trying to serve.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a leadership plan. We weren't helping that person get to where they needed to go. And I think sometimes with servant leadership or, you know, with even just trying to be a friend, we err too side on kindness versus actually what kindness is telling somebody the truth, helping somebody to see an area opportunity where they can grow.
I really like that distinction. It makes me think about the heartbeat behind Grace Space. If I could sum it up in two different threads, is compassion and curiosity. And I think the curiosity gets us out of that kindness trap. You know, where is your car? That question alone. Wait a minute, what are we doing here? Wait a minute, where are we going? The curiosity allows it to kind of sync up with the kindness or the compassion. And it's unapologetically being a part of creating some clarity of where are we going with this. But we get to do it with so much compassion, and it's the curiosity that gets us there.
Yeah, well said.
Okay, so this is the funny thing. When I reached out to you and said, hey, Nick, can you be on my podcast, which I've been wanting to do for probably several months. But I kept thinking, now is not the good time. Oh, now is not the good time. Like, I just didn't want to bug you. I didn't want to bother you. But I was like, okay, holidays are coming up on us. This is probably the worst time, but I'm going to reach out because I don't want to not have you on my show. And it was so fun. You're like, actually, Heather, I'd love to. I'm in the middle of reading Grace Space now.
Yeah.
And I love that response because you said there's a practice that you're really drawn to, which is connection versus protection. Can you speak to that a little bit and how that has been influencing you?
Yeah, I'd say a few things. First off, I really love the book, so thank you. I'd say Viktor Frankl, just to start with, you know, the idea that we're in control. I think that was helpful as the foundational tool for everything, our ability to respond versus react. And so when I got to that chapter of protection versus connection, you know, I think it was your intention. It flipped a little. It felt for me that one, there's times where I need to protect to connect. They're not always opposite with one another. And so for me, you know, people ask about my cadence and how do I balance things. And honestly, the reality is, Heather, not well. There are times where we've gotten into ultra running over the last couple of years, and I know Darren has as well, doing some longer races. And so we've had the kids be able to participate as well, some kids fun runs and 5Ks and things. And when they were learning to run, they would sprint and then
Yeah.
walk and then
Yeah.
sprint and then walk. And I'd be
Yeah.
like, come on, guys, like create some type of cadence on those
Right.
runs.
Right.
But I got to look at myself in the mirror and say, hey,
Mm.
leadership wise, and sometimes seasons of life, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sprinting and then walking and sprinting and
Mm.
walking. So I'll say, first off, like that's an opportunity. And so when I
Mm-hmm.
read that chapter of protection versus connection, I went out to a conference out in Atlanta, a lot of Chick-fil-A operators and executive directors out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a busy season. It's been a busy year. There's economic challenges. There's a lot of different, ups and
Mm.
downs, and there's so many great things. But I sensed in this one operator I was talking to a little bit of being overwhelmed. And so I was
Mm.
able to use your book, and I said, hey, and this person's an extrovert, and there was probably 6,000 people out there. And I think there
Mm.
was the pressure of connecting with every single one of them.
Mm.
And
Oh
so I said,
gosh.
hey,
Yeah.
a friend wrote a book, and I was talking to him more talking to myself, right?
Yeah. Right.
Uh, if you want to connect with these
Mm.
people, there's going to be some need to protect. You got to
Mm.
be able to say no to something. You got to say no
Mm.
to some people. You got to say no
Mm-hmm.
for the goal of being able to connect at a deeper
Mm.
level. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, it just really resonated of, hey, what are the things that I'm saying yes to?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things I'm saying no to? What are the things I'm saying no to that I would love to do, but I just
Mm-hmm.
can't capacity wise? And so, um, I don't know, when it comes down to, we've got one life and we got to protect
Yeah.
that asset. And if
Yeah.
we can protect it, not for putting walls up,
Yeah.
because that's where it is protection versus connection. When we put walls up, when we put our defenses up, when we're not genuine, when we're superficial, that's not healthy. But
Yeah.
if we're protecting time and
Mm-hmm.
capacity and energy so that when we do connect, it's more joyful and genuine and authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that really resonated with me.
I love that. I just did a Grace Space workshop last week, and it was so powerful. I was sitting with the executive team and the board, and one of the things that was really becoming clear to them was this is transferable. I can do it in work and I could do it at home. And I said, not only is it transferable, but I'm going to give you the personal and professional courtesy to apply it wherever it works because again, this goes internally. And if you're applying it at home, it's going to affect you as a leader at work. If you're applying it at work, it's going to affect you as a leader at home. Have you seen that kind of transferability as you kind of working through these practices?
Oh, absolutely. I think that goes down
Mm-hmm.
to like you said, it's the within work. And
Yeah.
when it's the inside work, you can't compartmentalize.
Right.
I'm going to be this really, genuine, deep, open,
Yeah.
connecting leader at work. And I'm going to it doesn't, it has to go into all different areas of relationship. That's one of the
Mm.
things I appreciate about the book is these tools are not just those quick skills. Hey, do this. You got to
Mm-hmm.
do some internal work if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
try to overcome your reaction.
Yeah.
Like those are some practices that we have practiced thousands of reps
Mm-hmm.
since we've been wounded or hurt, and so it's easy to react. And so if I want to respond, it's not just okay, cool, learn these two questions and I've checked that one off the list. No,
Mm-hmm.
I have to do some work, and I have to do the work personally. I have to do the work professionally. I have to do the work out on the
Mm.
soccer field if I'm coaching, or whether I'm helping out at
Mm-hmm.
lunch at Chick-fil-A. So
I love that. And in my work with people, I think one of the nicest surprises that I have been able to encounter is when I'll listen to them and they'll tell me everything. And I want them to tell me everything. Like, I just want this trust level of like, you unfiltered, say whatever you need to say. I'm not going to judge you. But when we get to the end of the conversation, it's always my job to move them into, what do you want to do about this? Like, we're not going to just stay here and vent. What do you want to do about this? And I can't believe how many times I've said, yeah, I totally get it. I'd react that way too. Yep. I totally know what you feel like. Did you know there's another way you can respond? It's been so powerful to watch the goodness in humans go, no, I didn't. Tell me more. And when I get down to, even like I'm thinking of receptivity and defensiveness, when I get down to some of these practices, I've never once had someone say, well, now that you presented both sides of the coin, I'm going to stick with my defensiveness. Thanks, Heath. I've
yeah.
never heard that. And I think what I'm so moved by is I think people internally are very good. It's just life can beat us up. We can get sideways. We can get modeled some hard stuff to us. And I think this idea of leadership from within is this call to kind of return home to your goodness. You've got so much goodness inside of you.
So, I mean, and especially it's empowering. If somebody knows
Mm-hmm.
I have the ability to choose something different.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe it was William Glasser, like reality therapy.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? Are you getting what you want? And would you be
Mm-hmm.
willing to try something different? And
Mm.
just to challenge our reality, well, I keep doing this and he keeps doing this, or
Yeah.
she keeps doing this and I keep responding there. And it's like, are you getting what you want?
Yeah.
And for then to ask the hard question, are you willing to do something different?
Yeah.
And I think that's where there's so many great resources and tools in your book, those practices. But we got to apply them,
We got to practice them. Yep.
we got to practice them, and we got to know when to apply them.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 6,000 tools. I got a shed right next to me that I can see. And I remember this was maybe a couple of years ago. I couldn't find my work shoe. I came down, was getting dressed in the morning, and it's always in the exact same spot. And there was like the left one and the right one was missing. And so after a while of looking, I'm like, what happened? So I asked Sherry, I'm like, Sherry, do you know where my work shoe is? And she's like, oh yeah, I had to hit a nail in upstairs to hang a painting. And I said, and you used my work shoe. And I was like, we got hammers. And she's like, yeah, but that one was the one that was there. And so I think like, your practices, there's a lot of tools and resources and practices out there, but we got to know and be familiar with them.
Yes.
The more that we can jump in and dive in, not just like put our foot in the water, but like, hey, I'm going to try to learn these things and apply them. The more we know when to apply those tools as well.
Yeah. And this is the gray space I want to offer our listeners. There are 7 practices, but in my work, I always tell people just choose one for the year.
Yeah.
That's enough. Because I work with so many overachievers and these high powered people. And I just said, just focus on one. And you know what? You don't have to journal about it. You don't have to talk about it, write about it. Just focus on one and let it simmer in the subconscious. You'll be amazed that our subconscious starts really working for us and influencing us. And really, we do get that clarity that we need to say, oh, I think I was doing a little bit of control there versus freedom. Oops, I think I was reacting.
Do you generally give them which one to start on? You let them pick, or is there one for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll usually.
Was there a reason the order of the book? I'm curious because for me it was so foundational, the idea of response. Because of like, if I know I can respond, then I also know like I have power in all of those practices.
Yeah, there is a little bit of hierarchy in it, particularly the last 3. I was really pleasantly surprised when you liked the connection versus protection, because that's one of the harder ones. And the trust versus fear moves into those last 3. And those are more commitment level. There's more need for feedback loops. There's more need for the practice can get uncomfortable. Let's just be candid. And so understanding that uncomfortability is required for growth is really important as we practice things. So I just try and honor that space. But I think what's also powerful is, again, I just did this workshop last week and I had the posters all up around the room of each practice. And then I had them write just an example quickly on a Post-it of where they wanted to change and grow. And it was so cool to see where they gravitated toward. And in this company, one of the biggest practices that I could see that there was a universal thread was around connection versus protection and constructive versus destructive. And so it became a very enlightening awareness to say, and again, this is my commitment as a coach, to meet them where they're at. Yeah. I don't know what's going on within them. And that would be very presumptuous and even arrogant of me to say, everybody start at number 1.
Yep.
They're intelligent, they're experienced leaders. They knew where they needed to start. And so I gave them the respect of doing that. And then it was interesting that it was actually more of a corporate practice. And so everybody committed to that one practice for the year. And they got to still choose, but the majority of them were choosing this one.
That's so fascinating. I wonder, as you continue to, do that with other organizations, to see the different themes, because each organization ends up experiencing their own culture and their own challenges and in the season. And so to see where people navigate must be really interesting.
It's super interesting. And I think it helps them give the clarity they need as a team to say, wow, I didn't realize this was an issue. And maybe we're all needing to kind of be aware of this, and we're all going to show up. Again, the essence behind leadership from within, and really why I wrote Gray Space, was this idea that we all have the power to carry our space around with us wherever we go, and to be very intentional about it. However we step into a room or into a project or a relationship, how are we stepping into it? What kind of presence are we bringing is so critical.
So good. I was just, as you're sharing, my uncle, my family moved up to Argentina. My dad's eldest uncle came first, and then followed by his older brother, and then he came last. And so I've got this connection with my dad had passed away when I was younger. And so I have one uncle left, and I just think about that internal, external. So he is an amazing, awesome person, and he is a hoarder to the nth degree. So anytime I go down, he never married, doesn't have any kids. Anytime I go down, whatever he wants to give me, I take truckloads because I'm trying to help him out, and it's all this treasures and, everything.
Yeah.
So I went down there. This was maybe 2 times ago. So maybe 6 months ago, down in the Bay Area. And he gave me this violin case, and it was this beautiful case. And he told me, hey, I want to give this to Fern. So that's my daughter.
Oh.
And then he goes on to tell me, so it was my grandpa's, and my grandpa played in the Austrian orchestra or, symphony. So he said, don't sell this violin because it could be worth 20,000. It could be worth 200,000. And I said, I'm not taking this violin. First off, I'm not letting a 9-year-old play this violin, learn on this violin.
Serious.
Secondly, we've got all these cousins who, I don't want special treatment. So I'm going through all these dilemmas.
Yeah.
He insisted. I couldn't get the lock open, but I said, okay, we'll take it. And the whole drive up from the Bay Area, I'm thinking through this thing. I'm going to get robbed, and I have a $200,000 violin in the back seat. What am I going to do? Am I going to sell this and give it to, and so I went through all these different scenarios. I really wrestled with it. Finally got home. I got the lock opened, and inside the violin case was just old newspapers. And so who
Nick.
knows? I know. So I'll never tell him.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't watch this podcast. I'll never, who knows if he had given it away 10 years ago, if it ever existed. But I just thought there was so much potential on the exterior of this case.
Yeah.
And I was making all these plans on potential of what it looked like on the outside without any awareness of what was going on the inside.
Yeah.
And I just thought about that as far as even our leadership. Sometimes we're so focused on the exterior and what's going on, but we got to really, even with the people we're partnering with and we're working with, to take a look on the inside. And for the people who are vulnerable enough to say, hey, this is what's going on, you at least know reality.
Yes.
I would have saved hours of anxiety if I had been able to open it earlier. But just the importance of doing the internal work.
Oh, I love that example. The reality. It's a right of your mold example too. Like we just gotta look inside the case
at some point. Now there's probably some wisdom of saying, hey, pick and choose that. If you're super overwhelmed, don't open the case. Give it know what you can handle in that season.
Yeah. So well said. I'll work with clients and we'll get some pretty sensitive areas. And again, I'll look at them. I'm like, okay, this is kind of a big one. Are you ready to tackle it? And there is no right or wrong answer on it. This is just listening to your own sense of self. And sometimes they'll say, not today, Heath. And I'll be like, I get it.
Good call.
Good call. And we'll circle back around when you're ready. And it's being able to have that awareness, to your point earlier, which I will say self-awareness is one of the hardest things to coach around.
Well, it's tough because people think they have it and, and they don't, or some, so they've got an element of it. That's where there's so much, and with your work and everybody's work, of really focus on what they used to call the soft skills are so foundational and critical in every single organization.
Yeah.
Especially with the world changing and AI and, there's going to be a lot of those hard skills that are going to be somewhat replaceable. But if we can learn to be self-aware, if we can learn to be genuinely curious, if we can engage with compassion, it's so important right now.
Yeah. That's why I love the work that I do. I have a natural filter there. If there's corporate America, they're like, what are these soft skills? We don't need this. I'm like, okay, I'm not a fit. Yeah. It's the companies and then the clientele that are like, we know that's important and we're not quite sure how to do it. And I have so much grace and compassion for them. They know it's affecting the bottom line. They know their team is kind of imploding. They know their people are suffering. And it's these amazing executives and boards at the top saying, we need support internally to make sure our people are being cared for. And that's such a joy to come alongside those organizations.
And it's stuff that, you and I we're just probably more natively think that way. Yeah. But it's always affirming. When I think it was Harvard Business Journal recently was just talking about how soft skills are taking over the world and so it was just affirmative, this is what it's all about. You could find somebody who can crunch some numbers, but it takes some work to find the person who's willing to do the internal work, the person who's willing to be self-aware. And so, I
Yeah.
appreciate all the work you're doing.
Oh, thanks, Nick. Well, I appreciate what you're doing too. I know we're both working with emerging leaders too. I had a great conversation with Dr. Lisa Smith out of Pepperdine with emerging leaders. And again, it's just this reminder that they don't know some of these soft skills because they've been behind screens. And so
Mm.
to have grace and compassion for them, I'm literally teaching them how to have a challenging conversation. And I had a colleague who was talking about how she's teaching them how to eat at a business meeting. I go, what? That is literally what she does speaking on. I
Wow.
never heard of that before, but I thought that makes sense. That tracks. There's so much of a virtual world now that has evolved that she's literally having to help them navigate the reality world of face to face and what that looks like.
Wow.
I know. And I think it's too that idea of the leadership from within. It allows them to recognize the incongruence. And that's where I'm really proud of these new emerging leaders. They know that they're off, but they don't know what they need. And so I think to have a graciousness, which is what I love about Chick-fil-A, and my son got to work there. But the
That's
fact
right.
that they get to say my pleasure at the end, I mean, my son will still say that at times, my pleasure, my pleasure. So when you order your food, those of you who don't know, but probably have gotten experience at Chick-fil-A, whenever you say thank you to one of the employees there, they've been trained to say my pleasure. Is that happening in any other fast food service? No.
The cool story about that one, Truett Cathy, who founded Chick-fil-A, it was a
Oh,
Ritz-Carlton that in early 2000, late 90s, he was at a Ritz-Carlton and he saw
mm,
everybody there was saying my pleasure. The bellboy, the guy who grabbed his luggage, the person who came and checked on everybody. So he did some digging and found out kind of the purpose and the why behind
mm-hmm,
that. But it really set his heart on fire because he said people should not have to pay $500 a night to be treated with
mm,
that level of kindness. We should be doing that for people who come
mm,
into our store with getting a cup of water. And
mm,
so I think it's that mentality of like we've got this ability to serve, and it's not a
mm-hmm,
burden; it is a
mm-hmm,
joy. So yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's that idea too of what you put out there, you'll get back to you. And so I think a
Mm.
lot of them get to experience a higher level of humanity because we're coaching them on how to step into the space and create gray space around them to say, hey, how do I get to respond in this situation? How do I get to initiate a response?
And I love that you keep using the word practice because it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It takes
Yeah.
time. You're working with the next generation. We have all of our own challenges with
Mm-hmm.
the team members we're working with, but overall, they're such amazing people. And so
Mm-hmm.
if we have come with the mindset of, I'd say grace first, so our strategy,
Mm-hmm.
each Chick-fil-A is independently owned and operated. So we get to, oversee two of them, but our LLC is creating better days. Our
Mm-hmm.
mission and why we exist is to create a better day for every person who interacts with us. And so
Mm-hmm.
those are the team members that we get to interact with. When they come in, we get to create a better day for them. And when a guest comes through, I don't know what they're dealing with, but if we
Mm-hmm.
can serve them in a way that creates a better day, we lived out our mission. And the way
Mm-hmm.
we do that, that's why I was really excited about your book. So we have a strategy, and we call our strategy GPSB. So this is how we're going to win. G is we're always going to align with grace. So grace is we are going to partner with things beyond our control, and just trust that, man, God is for us, and He's going to help us,
Mm-hmm.
and He's going to help navigate this and take care of
Mm-hmm.
us. The P and the S is people. We're going to get the best people in the world that we can, and we're going to help them be the best versions of themselves. We're going to give them the best systems that we can,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're going to partner with a great brand. But I love that we start with grace, and I think as reading your book, I think that's what really connected me to it was that idea of, and this is what we're all about, at least at the Chick-fil-A's that I get to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
How can we use this resource to help people with those practices versus
Mm-hmm.
grace just being a word we talk about, but hey, how do we
Mm-hmm.
actually live that out?
Yeah. And it lives inside you.
Yep.
And I don't know if I talked about it in the book, but it was the premise behind why I did gray space. In my work, I was hearing so much about safe space. And
Mm-hmm.
frankly, I was getting a little fatigued by the conversation because it was a very low bar, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it was more of like being now used against humanity of saying, I'm going to go create my tribe and my safe space here. And then I'm going to kind of throw darts at everyone else. And so to be able to call humanity out, and let me be clear on that, there's definitely value around having a need for a safe space, and I really still value that. But I think we can level up as humanity, and I think we can carry not just safe space around with us, we can carry grace space so that when we enter those safe spaces, we can offer grace, not just a permission to band together and find our belonging. We're better than that. Every human is better than that. And every time I call them out on it, they love it. I mean, literally, they were applauding at the end of my workshop. This isn't a pat on the back for me. It's them being called out to go something that they know instinctively, intuitively is within them. And someone's naming that. Instead of saying, you're doing this wrong, they're saying, you could actually be better if you want. And they're all rising to it, again, because I work with so many high achievers. So being able to raise that bar, they're waiting. Our leaders are waiting for a higher bar. And I always joke, these are pretty intuitive. You know, someone might want to add a number 8, number 9, number 10, gray space. I don't care. Write the second book, right? Yep. But these are at least 7 foundational ones to start the practice with. And then at the end of each year, when I'm working with the clientele, I'll ask them, how'd it go? It's powerful to listen how their practice influenced the way they lived and lead. And they get to choose whether it's personal space or professional space. But I get so inspired listening to them because that ability to be able to focus on one area, that's where our curiosity goes up. And that's where we're able to step into that space. And you saw where I use the definition for grace. It's to do goodwill toward one another. I just use Webster's dictionary. Yeah. So as you're looking at that as your foundational piece, I had no idea we synced up on that. Why am I not working with you, Nick?
Well, I think Philip Yancey, he wrote a book, What's So Amazing About Grace?
Oh, yes.
And the whole first chapter is grace is the last good word.
Yeah.
Every other word's lost meaning and all that, but there's something powerful about that word grace. And so I love that, Heather, like, let's raise the bar. Safe spaces are super important.
Yeah.
But that's the minimum. Like, how do we raise the bar? I think that's what humanity needs. I can't remember who was talking about the idea of, like, right now the bar for humanity is, hey, let's tolerate one another.
Yeah.
But we're called to care for one another. We're called to love one another. We're called to show compassion. And so I love that idea with the work you're doing of, hey, let's raise the bar.
Let's raise the bar. Yeah.
As humans, let's raise the bar. Let's care for one another.
Yeah.
Let's show grace. Let's show love.
Yeah. And the good news that you get to carry it within you, I think that's been a really fun message to come out. And I think that even as you read it, you realized, oh, yeah, this is instinctive. I could connect or protect. It just gives you a moment to sit there and think about it. My focus this last year was freedom versus control. And it was really important for me, my personal life and my professional life. And I found that split second, as Viktor Frankl talks about, you have that split second between the stimuli and the experience, and being able to go, freedom versus control. And the example I used it was over Thanksgiving, just last week, where I was able to watch my son put a bowl in the microwave that was a plastic bowl, Nick, a plastic bowl. Okay. So I've got feelings about this plastic bowl.
I got you. Yeah.
But he lifted it up and he said, Mom, it's microwavable. Now I had that split second. It's my microwave. It's my house. I could do a power move. Right. And I realized, I go, son, you're an adult. It's your decision. Do whatever you want to do. But I was trying to tell him, put it in a glass bowl. I don't want to see the plastics leach into the food. And, even though it says it's microwavable, I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I realized this is his life. This is his decision. And I didn't want that to be something that would interfere with our relationship. And in all fairness, he does get to decide. Is that really where I want to control my son? No, I want him to feel that freedom to make the decisions down to where he puts his microwave, what bowl he puts in the microwave, right?
Well, you're braver than I, because I'm ignoring freedom versus control. I just know I'm not ready for it. I'm serious. It's one of the, I think, learning opportunities personally and professionally, hey, to empower people and to trust them with difficult, hard, challenging things. And I sometimes will maybe sugarcoat and say, hey, I really want to care and support, and, but sometimes I just want to control. This is years ago. Reed was he was so picky eating. And I remember, like, I was holding the fork feeding him, and he was like 3. And I remember telling him, like, all right, Reed, I'm not going to be feeding you when you're 17. And then it was like in that same moment, I looked at my hand and I'm like, wait a minute, who is holding this fork? This is not a Reed issue. This is a me issue. I'm the one. I just need to put this fork down. I think just go back to freedom and control.
Yeah.
There's a lot of areas of life where I'm probably still holding the fork, or I got to let it go and be like, this is a me issue. But maybe when I'm braver, I'll start tackling that.
Well, you instinctively know which ones you're pulled to. And that was one I needed to with adult children. And then with my clientele growing quite a bit. And I remember them asking me, Heather, which one should we focus on? Which one should we do? And I said, freedom versus control. I want to empower you to really ascertain which one you need. And I want you to believe in yourself because I believe in you. That's what freedom does. The control says, I'm going to minimize your empowerment, and I'm going to minimize your choice. And I'm going to step into you doubting yourself versus empowering yourself to really believe in who you are. And that would make me sad as both a coach and as a parent. So we have that split second in our places of authority to offer this empowerment, which leans toward freedom. And we also have that control piece that we can actually lower the potential and the belief that they hold within themselves. And I never want to be about that. I keep thinking about the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm.
I know, yeah. I know, but we're so, when we're not self-aware, we're not getting feedback. We can convince ourselves we're not doing harm because I'm controlling, I'm protecting, and now they're not always together.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and I have some cringe stories from my younger years.
I'm sure we all do.
A young leader, I'm like, oh man. Yeah. But I like to think that, again, leadership starts from within, and making sure that we have that self-awareness. How are we growing better? And we're never too old to have that humility to learn from one another. I don't care about the age. I've learned from, like I said, I learned from my 15-year-old son at one point, and I needed that feedback loop from a young boy that I'd never done this before. I didn't know what I was doing. And clearly I was missing something. So having that beautiful feedback loop, man, it made me not just a better mom, it made me a better person, a better leader, a better coach. You can see where you kind of need that influence in your life.
My mom's one of my heroes. So I told you my dad had passed away. They had moved up from Argentina.
Yeah.
And so she raised the three of us. My dad was 42. So at that time I was 8. I had a brother 18. My sister was 14. She took, she went back to school. She got her master's, and she, over the last couple of years, she was diagnosed with ALS. And I think about just what you're talking about. No one's too old. So when I was a student and then worked at the university, she audited more classes as a senior than I took as a student.
Wow.
She probably could have her doctorate from the amount of classes she audited. And so she audited every psych class she could. She audited every Bible and theology class, and any history class, anything that she was interested in. She just modeled that idea of lifelong learning.
Wow.
And one of the things that was unique about my mom, she was a talker. Like my whole life, like solar people would blacklist us because if they would knock on the door, she would invite them in and she would talk to them for hours. I'm not even making this up. And she wasn't going to buy solar, but she just loved to talk and chat. And so I just think of that lifelong learning. When she got diagnosed with ALS, one of the first things she lost was her voice. And she told me before losing her voice, she said, you know what? I think in learning, I have used up all my words, and I'm really excited to listen for the next couple of years. And it was just that idea of that's some deep realization in her 70s of saying, hey, it's great to be a talker, but I'm excited to listen. And so I love that. All these practices, it doesn't matter how old we are, we can put them into practice.
Oh, that is beautiful. I think she might be my hero now. Oh, Nick, it's so fun to talk with you. I knew we would have a great conversation. I think as we wrap up, what encouragement do you want to leave our listeners?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess I'll come back to grace. That's a good place to start with and a good place to end with. I think if we have more grace on the people around us and more grace on ourselves, this next year going into 2026 could be radically different. I think of sometimes the way we, the pressure we put on ourselves as leaders. If we were to put that pressure on some of the people we lead, we wouldn't have people following us, but we put it on ourselves. And so we got to show ourselves some grace, and we got to show the people that we get to do life with grace as well. So.
I love that. I think I'll tag on to that. My encouragement to all as listeners, thanks for joining us today. But it's this idea of stay curious with yourself. I think that's a form of grace. I've lived in way too much shame in my life, and I'd like to think as I've gotten older, I'm noticing where my flaws are, but I'm not feeling the shame of it. I'm feeling the curiosity. What's behind it? Where is the ego trying to raise its little head over there? Where is it that you need a little bit of a redirect? Who is it that you could call that knows how to handle this in a very gracious way that can help you change and grow, and asking yourself kind questions that are compassionate and have that curiosity that says, well, who are you today as a leader, Heather, at 55 that you weren't maybe at 52? What is it that you're growing in, and where is it that you want more of and what you want less of? So I think that idea of curiosity behind grace, space, and how you lead from within makes all the difference.
I love that.
Well, thank you, Nick. Where can people find you? Do you want to be found? Let me ask you that.
That's a good question. I am an extrovert at heart, but I'm old fashioned. I think I put on, some of the pre-work in this conversation. Hey, where can people find you? I said, generally, if they want to connect, let's grab coffee somewhere. So where can they find me? Maybe in the notes, I did put my LinkedIn and an email, so I can share that with you.
Perfect.
And you can put those in the notes. So
perfect. Yep. Okay, folks, we'll have all that in the show notes. So if you want to grab coffee with Nick, which I do, I love having his insight in my life. And I want to hear more about what you're doing over there at Chick-fil-A too. It sounds like you have some really cool stuff going on that's shaping a space of grace in the fast food world. Well done.
Well, let's keep the conversation going. Absolutely.
Love it. All right, everybody. Nick and I are both cheering you on. Did today's episode resonate with you? Rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And don't forget to subscribe to receiving emails at heatherpenny.com so you never miss a moment of growth. Cheering you on.